Okay, we've got a new battery for the Prado, so this is the ideal time before we put the new battery in to eliminate the possibility of parasitic draw that I've failed to find. And I took that opportunity, and lo and behold, I found 1 amp of parasitic draw. So let's take a look at that. I need my camera stand out here. I'm trying to do this one-handed. Alright, so we've got multimeter probes on the negative terminal of the battery, positive onto the removed terminal. And we're on the 10 amp scale, and we've got our meter plugged into the amps socket. And you can see we got 1.1, roughly, 3 amps now. So we've definitely got a problem, right? That will flatten the battery very quickly. So maybe the battery is dead, maybe it isn't, but it's definitely getting way too much current draw. What I did differently this time that I didn't do before was I left the light switch in the on position, and I relied on the door opening, turning it off. So let's go and see what that does. So you'll notice the headlights are not on. Dirty window, but there's no internal lights on. I'll open the door up. You can see that the light switch is in the on position, but it should be turned off because I've opened the door and the lights are actually off. So the first thing we're going to do is turn the lights off and do the test again. Shut the door. See if I can do it one-handed again. Okay, so we can see it's not the lights. At least it doesn't look like it's the lights. So now back to our battery here. Let's disconnect the redundant things. Well, the winch will be first, and then this other cable here. So let me do those and come back. We're doing one at a time. We've taken the auxiliary battery connection. There's a smart relay, that's what it's going to. And maybe the smart relay is suddenly very dumb. Let's see. Negative on negative. Positive on there. Still 1 amp. So it's not that. Okay. So now let's disconnect the winch. I don't believe it's the winch, but we'll do it anyway because then we'll have nothing connected other than Toyota stuff. Oops, dropped my spanner. So we're going to disconnect the winch. Even though the switch is turned off for the winch, we're going to disconnect it anyway and see where we get. Okay. Put this back on here so we don't lose it. I just realised I can't. Oh no. I thought for a second I bought the wrong battery, but I didn't. Okay, so here we go. Let's try now with the winch disconnected. And I can't get my hands in the right place, can I? To do it one-handed anymore. Somehow I've lost the knack. Let me try. Here we go. Still pretty much the same, right? 1 amp. So it's nothing to do with those connections on the battery. Okay. So let's just be sure and disconnect this earth as well, just in case. It shouldn't be a problem, but we're going to remove all doubt. I'm going to remove this earth. This is the winch earth. So we removed the positive for the winch, but we haven't removed the negative yet. So we'll do that. Okay. Do our one-handed ballet again. Negative on there, positive on there. Still 1 amp. So we've still got a problem. So, given that it's a Toyota, we can disable all of the systems, if you like, apart from just a few, I think, by pulling this short link out, as Toyota calls it. Oh, don't drop the fuse puller. Okay, we've got that pin pulled out. Let's try again. My sunglasses out of the way. It's hard to do one-handed. Alright, there we go. We're on there. Still fairly high, really. There's clearly been a reduction, but it's not a terribly significant one. There's no reduction there. There's still 1 amp coming out of that battery. So, is the starter motor actually the problem? Let me just do one more test first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this lead off here, in case there's a short somewhere inside here that's causing this to pull current. This cable goes to this fuse box, and with that pin out, there should be nothing happening here. Just looking at the negative here for it. I think that's the negative for it. Running down somewhere. Anyway, let's take that off here. And see where we get to. And if that solves it, then I'm going to have to get the wiring diagram out to find out what's on this. Because as far as I can tell, it just goes into the fuse box. So I'll have to start pulling fuses from here, as I said in my previous video. That's how you would check it. So now we've got that cable off. What's happened? 0. So there's our problem. Something that is not being disabled by that shorting pin is drawing all the current. So as I say, I might have to find out what the wiring diagram is. We can still do some experimentation if it doesn't rain on me, which it looks like it's going to do shortly. Excuse me. Let's leave the pin out for now. Let's put this cable back on here. Okay, and we should be back to 1 amp of current draw, but don't assume that you will. You could have managed to switch a system off by disconnecting that, and so it remains off now. So we want to check before we jump to any conclusions that we still have a current draw. And this is the problem with intermittent faults. Okay, yes, we still have a current draw. Comes and goes a bit, depending on where am I. Alright, still a current draw there. It's a little less, but it's still there. Okay, so that means this particular lead is somehow draining current from the battery. I'm going to start with this here. This, I believe, is the light relay. I'll get the lid and have a look in a minute. I've long suspected it was the lights. pull that out. Let me check the cap here. And let's see what we've got. Headlights, that's what it is. It says head, but I think it means headlights. Okay, so that fuse is pulled now. Let's do a check. Alright, still much the same. So we know it's not the headlights. So we're going to put that one back before we lose it. And then we've got to ask ourselves, well, what else could it be that's pulling an amp? ABS, radio. Let's do the radio first, because one of the things that happens when I disable the battery is the radio goes into security mode, and I've also suspected that. So what we're going to do, although the radio should be disabled by that pin coming out, it would be more likely to be something like ABS. But anyway, I'm going to go with my gut for the moment, and I'm going to pull the radio pin out, which is a 20 amp fuse. Only it's not 20 on this car, it appears to be 15. Somebody might have changed it, previous owner or something. I suspect it's not that, but we're going to test it because that's the only thing that stays on due to it going into security mode. Alright. And it doesn't appear to be the radio, as we suspected. Alright, so I will have to get the wiring diagram to be certain of what's happening here, but let's have a look. I'm more suspicious of relays than I am of anything else. And I just want to check this wiring. What's inside here? Nothing. Okay. I will probably have to get the wiring diagram out, but I'm going to pull this other relay, try and see what it is. Heater. Yes, definitely a heater could leak to earth. I'm going to try and pull that out if I can. Pull a heater relay out, and we'll do another test. The multimeter has turned itself off. No change. So, heater relay goes back in. Make sure you pay attention to the way things go, or you might have some problems. Okay, what else have we got in here? Electronic fuel injection. I don't have an AF heater, whatever that is. I do have a fuel pump, of course, and I do have glow plugs. So let's start with the fuel pump, because I have got the fuel pump connected to a computer via, so in other words, the car is chipped. And the way it works on this model is it adjusts that spill valve down there, which is the fuel pump. Well, let's see. No change. Okay, so not the fuel pump. So we put the fuel pump back in. Fuel pump relay. I don't know that I'm going to get that one out without a pair of pliers. This one is the glow plugs. What else is in there? EFI. Let's pull the EFI. So that's the blue one here. Again, it could be that the chip is pulling power. Let's pull the EFI. Do another check. Really no difference. So it's not the EFI. Glow plugs being heaters do make me suspicious, so I'm going to go and get something that will allow me to pull that glow plug relay out, or link actually, it looks like it is, a fusible link. I'll pull that out and see what we get. Okay, I couldn't pull this out, but I was able to remove the cover, and I was able to demonstrate that that is live, but it's huge amperage. Now if the glow plugs are leaking, well, that could account for some drain. I don't imagine how they would do that. I might have to see if there is a glow plug fuse other than that one. Let's have a look here. Can't see one. What I do notice though is I saw fuel pump there, and there's actually no actual fuel pump relay. So that's the defogger relay. Because the fuel pump would be for a petrol car. So MGCLT. Don't know what MGCLT is, but we're going to pull it out anyway and see if there's a change. I suspect we might have something fairly low, like not, although I suspect glow plugs, because they're heater circuits, they would typically pull a lot more current than that. Okay, so still the same with that out. So we're going to put it back where it came from. And it came from there like that. Can't get my hand in there. Okay. We've already pulled the heater. We haven't pulled the front fog out, so we'll pull it out now. I'm just going to go through systematically and see what we can find. We might find nothing. It might be that there's a short in a wire somewhere. Still the same. Oops. Flipped it over. Okay, I'll put that one back in where it came from. What's the black one? Accessories or something it says. I don't even know if it's removable. I don't know that it is. I think it just is a box for the accessories out. Let me see. Okay, so that's not removable. Alright, let me just abandon this just for a second before I go and check anything else. I need to ask myself a question. what else have I modified that maybe isn't being bypassed by this removed shorting pin? So let me come into the cabin, because it's more likely I got something, we're not going to say wrong, but we'll use that word till we can think of a better one, rather than Toyota. But I haven't, in the sense that I suspected this might still be displaying voltage because I connected some items to the fuse by using those jumpers that you can see these red cables coming off. So for the moment, I'm going to pull those jumpers out. All right, and that will remove those modifications that I made, which, forgive me, I can't even remember what they are, but there's something inside the cabin here. Because 1 amp is sufficient to flatten your battery, but it doesn't usually indicate any significant kind of equipment like heaters or lights or anything, unless there's just a slight draw. Typically it would be more than that for those items. So let's come back again. Oh, we might have our answer, huh? Excuse me. So there you go. I suspect that there might be a short somewhere associated with whatever I've plugged in there, or those items are plugged into a circuit that's always on. Now, I don't remember what they are. I will have to pull it out and have a look at it. I had a feeling it was radios or something. No, I don't think it is radios. I don't know what it is. I'm going to have to go and have a look. But we found the problem. So there you go. See, and one of the things that I learned in the past, I had a mentor who was trained in a process called Kepner-Trigo, and he would always guide me in troubleshooting. And one of the things that I learned from that is go back and ask yourself what changed, right? So between the time that I got this car, when it wouldn't flatten the battery, to the time when I used this car for desert tours and it started flattening batteries occasionally, what changed? Well, I modified some things, didn't I? And unfortunately, what further happened was, due to issues on tour, sometimes you get issues, electrical issues, and you shortcut. You go, I'll just solve that problem rapidly now because I've got to keep my guests moving. And then you forget what you've done. So I'm going to have to go back as part of the rewiring program on this car and work out what those two jumpers do. In fact, why don't I just put one of them back and see which one is the culprit? That's a better idea, isn't it? Except I don't even remember where I took them from. I took that one from there. So that's a mistake. I didn't remember where I took them from. Anyway, I'll plug that one in where I think it came from, which I can't seem to do one-handed. No, I can't. I'm going to have to come back to you. We got one back. The other one goes up in here. So that one's back. I don't know what it does yet. Doesn't seem to be associated with that. I can't see anything else that it's associated with. Let's just see whether we've got a current draw. At least then we'll know which one is the problem one, if it's not both of them. And we'll know it's both of them when we see a difference in the current draw. Okay, so that one's good. That one can stay. Let's go do the other one now. And when I find out what this does, if I do want it still to remain, what I will do is I will put a switch in the circuit somewhere. Or a relay would be better, that switches off when I turn the ignition off, if I don't want this permanently on, that is. I might want it permanently on when I'm camped or something, but I can still put a switch on it. Okay, so let's come around here and have a look. Now again, we might have turned some system off and it won't come back on again. We don't know, but let's have a look. 1 amp. 1.2 amps in fact. Okay, so there's our culprit. So now all we have to do is find out what that actually does. So I can probably get a quick look at it by pulling this panel out, which I'll do. Okay, well it goes to this fridge switch, which powers a relay. Now that relay, I thought, would have been in the in a situation where it doesn't draw current when it's turned off. But it looks like it might draw current when it's turned off. So you can get relays in two configurations. One that draws current when it's turned on and one that draws current when it's turned off. I'll go into an explanation of that some other time. But what's intriguing to me is the light doesn't come on there. So I'm going to follow this up a bit more. Bear with me, I'll come back to you. I've traced the wire. There's 2 wires come off that device down there in the fuse box that we pulled earlier. And I've disabled this one, right? So there's another one. We're going to do them one at a time. So we'll disable that one and we'll come and check for current draw again. And what we'll probably determine from that is we've got the wrong relay type. We've got a relay that draws current when it's in the off position. No, so it's not the relay, so that's good news because I didn't really want to have to change those relays. So whatever else is connected to this, let's find out what that is. So we got 2 wires coming out of that blue thing. And this second one comes down and goes to the USB outlet. Now the USB outlet should not be drawing current if it's not displaying any voltage, it's not displaying anything, unless there's a leak in it somewhere. So I've pulled that wire off. So what you can see is this is, there's a lot of checking and double checking and it's not resolved the problem. So let's come back, double check our work here. I should probably cut these cable ties so I can follow these wires more appropriately while I'm talking to you. Okay, so it comes up to this junction here, this blue thing, and then one of them goes to there, definitely goes to there. Okay, which I've got pulled off. And one of them goes where? Goes to this one, which is pulled off as well. So I'm going to pull it out of the fuse box again, double check my work. So I'll pull that thing that we pulled out before, the jumper that allows us to power things by plugging it into the fuse, this thing here. And that should disable the draw. Okay, back here we go. And it most certainly does. So Let's go back to the fuse box and see what it's actually plugged into. It might not be those connections that's drawing the current. So this might be hard to explain to you, but I'll try my best. Okay, so you see this little jumpy thing here? You put it in place of a fuse. And you can see you can double up. You've got one fuse that does the original job and one fuse that does the job of delivering power to something else. Now, I'm assuming the one at the bottom is the one for the normal function. So let's find out what the normal function of that fuse position is, because we've plugged it into the box here in a specific position. I just have to locate what that position is. So we have a look here and we go, how many down from or up from the bottom is it? It is 1, 2, 3, fourth position from the bottom in the middle. Assuming this is the right way up. It probably isn't, because it'll be upside down. No, that's correct, because there's 30 amp and 30 amp and 15 amp, right? So if you look on here, there's a 15 amp fuse. That 15 amp fuse is for the right rear washer. Okay. Right rear. Is that washer? Why would there be a right rear washer? Right rear something. WSH. Front wiper washer. Yeah, that's... Unless it's just rear washer. Anyway. I didn't even know it had a rear washer. I certainly don't use it, so I can ditch that fuse. Okay, so starters, we've pulled that 15 amp fuse out. We've put the jumpy thing back in there. I don't think you can see there past all those wires. And it's got the fuse in it that's doing these jobs here, right? Which is essentially a USB outlet and a relay switch for the fridge or fridges. We come back here. And we check the drawer again. And that's more betterer. Okay, look at that. So, whatever RRWSH is, it's pulling power. Well, there isn't a washer. Oh yeah, there, look. So, I'd imagine there's a washer motor down inside here somewhere. And it must be stuffed. Now, as you can tell by my window, I don't use that washer. And if you think I'm going to dig around and try and find where the washer motor is, in no way. It could be under the bonnet with the other washer. But I say again, if you think I'm going to dig around and try and find a fault on something I don't use, you got rocks in your head. So we'll go back now and we'll enable these just to double check, triple check, quadruple check our work, right? We'll put these back on and see what happens. Reconnected those, push that partly in, so it's just no risk of it shorting out or catching fire. Come back here, do another check. Bellissimo, bueno, muy bien, excellent, excelente, estupendo. We have solved the problem. And there you go, that's how you do the troubleshooting. Thank God that problem's solved, and thank God I don't need that rear washer, huh?